Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Indie Game Movement, the podcast that talks about the marketing and business of indie games. I'm Andrew Pappas, I'm going to be your host today, and this is episode 134, where we talk about how to transition into becoming a publisher. Now, when indie devs decide that they want to make games, in most cases when thinking about publishing, it's along the lines of partnering with one. However, there's a trend going on where many developers are becoming publishers. Now, for some that may consider this, transitioning into this role can seem daunting despite the opportunities it can provide. That's why our guest today shares their history, process, and reasoning for making this transition, and why for some, the benefits can be rewarding on various levels. So that's what we're going to be talking about right here today on Indie Game Movement. Hey everybody, and we're back, and today I have Neal from SkyMap Games. Neal, how's it going, buddy?
Hey, good, Andrew. It's been it's a different world since the last time that we had a chance to catch up and chat.
Yeah, it definitely is. And it's funny you said that because prior to us starting the show and stuff, Neal and I were discussing how we were at PAX and that we definitely dodged a bullet.
Yeah, it seems strange, like the one event where they jokingly always say, "Oh, I got PAX Pox," or like I got flu from Penny Arcade or something, and I don't think there were actually any COVID cases that came out of there, which is some kind of strange miracle.
Yeah, I know. I kept looking back regularly, was there anything out of Boston? Was there any cases? I'm like, I don't know. I was freaking out for my family's sake and everything, and yeah, you're right. Nothing came out of it. I don't even remember people complaining about PAX Pox or anything like that.
I think everyone was so paranoid that that's probably part of it. I remember even when we were running our booth, we were just scrubbing everything down with alcohol wipes and disinfecting and all that sort of stuff. It was pretty aggressive, but weirdly enough, the Biogen conference that was right after PAX, that was the one that ended up spreading a ton of COVID. So,
oh man, yeah.
How does that happen?
Again, dodged a bullet, but
big time.
But here we are, still pandemic and everything. But needless to say, we're here to have some really cool discussions. And for those of you who may remember Neal, he was actually in episode 109, where he was talking about how indie devs can stand out with their Kickstarter. And so we're going to do things a little bit differently today because we already kind of introduced Neal before. If you really want to know a little bit more about him, and so you can go check out the Q-Box round from episode 109, and I'll give you a quick preview of that aspect, and that was his favorite food was any and all type of curry dishes, and he does not discriminate when it comes to curry, do you, Neal?
No, I don't. I'm still digging on curry big time. I've been slamming down Thai curry from this place around the corner from me. It's been awesome. The one thing that stinks about the pandemic is a lot of restaurants are kind of flopping all over the place. But there's a few good delivery places that oh yeah, I'll keep them in business. Give me all your curry.
Give me all your curry. So when Neal is not doing his thing for SkyMap Games, he is keeping various restaurants that sell curry dishes in business. So thank you for doing your part in all of this, my friend.
I'm trying my best,
All right, cool. So why don't we do this though, just in case that people are busy or and everything else, not necessarily wanting to go back to that episode to learn a little bit more. Just tell us what you do for SkyMap Games and give a brief synopsis about SkyMap.
Yeah, absolutely. So SkyMap Games was founded about 7 years ago by myself and a couple of college friends of mine, and we are in primarily work for hire, meaning we help other game companies bring their games to new platforms, help them with code development, primarily in engineering with some art support as well. And more recently, we've launched some of our own products. We're launching some games that are code developed or published. So it's a pretty big variety of stuff that we do in the business, but it's been a ton of fun. Like, even now we're really just enjoying ourselves making so many different kinds of cool games.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, and thank you for kind of refreshing some of our memories and letting people know who aren't familiar, with the previous episode, what you do and everything. Now, I know that's a great segue into what we're going to be talking about today, but before we do that, I have to ask you this question because this is dynamic. It's always changing in terms of what are you playing right now for a game?
Yeah, so recently I've been playing a lot of a game that we're actually publishing called Rolled Out.
Oh, nice.
It's a marble roller style game, similar to Marble Madness or Super Monkey Ball or those types of projects.
Yep.
So I actually just legitimately love it. So I've been playing that. And then also I've been normally I'm not into this kind of game, but I've been playing Call of Duty Mobile. And
Nice.
yeah, which is totally different than the kind of stuff I'm normally into. Normally I like puzzle games and that sort of thing, but it's great. I mean, you can just pick it up and play it in like 2 seconds and it runs smoothly and there's just seemingly no shortage of content. So I've been really enjoying that too.
And how do you play? Are you just using the like the touchscreen controls or do you have a controller or?
Yeah, funny enough, you can play with a touchscreen like you would Fortnite or any other games
Yep.
where you're kind of using your thumbs and twiddling them around on the screen. But you can also hook a controller up to iOS, an Xbox controller or PlayStation, and you can just play with a controller like a regular Call of Duty game.
Oh,
and
sweet.
it works shockingly well. Like there's a little bit of weirdness sometimes when you're trying to like press too many buttons at once or that sort of thing, but no, it's good. Like it works fine.
Oh, good to know. I was always a little reluctant on those types of games with, depending on the interfaces, but it looks like it's very accommodating regardless of.
Yeah, it's pretty great. How about you, Andrew? What have you been playing?
I never play anything anymore, or I
Oh,
do.
no.
I do. Like I still, I always hate answering. And this is why. I'll give you a prime example. So recently, I've been a little late, but I'm okay with this. Getting a mini SNES. So I did pay a little bit of a premium. Cool. It was fair though. It was like $40 over asking price. So it's like it was $120, and before it was listed for $80. So and include free shipping. So I was like, this is a steal because there's other sellers listing for as much as like $200 to $300, which is ridiculous.
It's a lot of money, yeah.
Yeah. So I got it for a fair price. Super stoked. It came early. I go to plug it in, and I was trying to play it with my daughter, who's 4 years old, and we were all for it. And then I had some issues plugging it in because apparently if you plug into a USB port from something else and it doesn't have enough power, you'll have like audio issues and all this stuff. Figured that out real quick just because, it helps when you just read the directions right away opposed to trying to figure things out then reading them. But plugged it in, and then next thing you know, my son comes in, and I'm no longer playing with my daughter. I was going to play some Mario Kart. They're just cannibalizing over the whole thing, and once again, I don't have anything to play. And
your cool new mini SNES is now their cool new mini SNES.
And the only time I have energy is like early in the morning. But the last thing I'm like getting my day going and stuff. The last thing I'm going to be doing is like hunkering down and playing video games at like 6 a.m.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. There's probably something to say for, I find like I'm starting to get more into mobile games now because for the exact reason you just described, it's like, okay, I have 2 seconds between doing one thing and another, and I just have something I can pick up and play for a minute. And the quality, I mean, I'll tell you, like mobile game quality has really gone up.
It has.
Like, significantly, and I didn't even realize it until I started like playing games on my cell phone recently, but it's pretty shocking how good some games are. Apple Arcade's amazing in particular.
I'm with you there because I started doing that a little bit myself. It's like I could squeeze 5 minutes in here. So all right, cool. So a lot of stuff we're playing right now, but more importantly, let's get to the topic here, and this is going to be an interesting one because it's a little bit different than what we typically talk about, but I think it's still really important for everybody to be aware of in terms of, when they're really thinking about where they are with their company, with their studio, and how to kind of expand from that. And specifically, what we're going to be talking about is how to transition into becoming a publisher. So I want to kick off this conversation, Neal, with saying that, it really seems that there's a growing number of publishers that have transitioned, from being developers. And it's definitely a trend that continues today. So what do you think the main reason is that so many developers are becoming publishers or looking to become publishers?
I think there's a couple of big reasons. The first is a lot of devs have issues of diversification. So they have a successful game and they have generated enough cash that they can start looking at building a new project. But the issue is that project might take you a number of years before you can actually get it out.
Yeah.
And so you have all these other great games that are being posted on Twitter, Reddit, and all over the place, mostly by more amateur or newer game studios. And so you spot them and you're like, okay, well, there's something interesting here. And it ends up that a lot of games that are sort of being posted online, they are in some cases pretty close to launching. And so for devs, it's like, well, if I have some cash that I can use to help these other developers and diversify my own, portfolio of projects, that's sort of one reason. It's almost like a hedge, right? The other reason is in some cases, developers have a set of capability, not financial, but either in their own marketing or in their own development capacity to be able to come aboard and help another team to more successfully launch their games. So I think that there was a gap, and there still is a bit of a gap in the market for like all of these really great games that are being made by smaller studios that with a little bit of help could go from, a decent launch to a great launch, or from a decent project to a great project, but they just need a little bit of that assistance. So that's what I'm really seeing in the across the marketplace right now.
Yeah, no, it's really cool that you say that, because I mean, again, it makes sense. And you know what's really interesting? I've actually had some conversations with some of our listeners, some of which that are in very, very early stages. The country they're based in, it's the indie game scene and the industry is in the very early development stages, right? Like, I mean, the industry as a whole is super, super much in its infancy, but in other countries too, especially, it's like it just started. It was like just born. And the point that he was making was that you have a lot of these amateur developers out there that are so eager to learn and try to get all this information, but at least from a local standpoint, based, locally within the country, they don't really have a lot of this assistance or helps. They're really striving to look for those others that that can, like you said, fill that gap, but they don't necessarily have that yet. So the fact, and this is a common thing as you're identifying, and a lot of other devs going to publishers are identifying too. And it's, I think from that perspective alone, just from that example, it's definitely going to continue to be a trend.
Yeah, it's definitely going to continue being a trend. And, there's organizations that have been looking especially at smaller studios that are in areas where in some cases it's almost more of a financial decision. Like if the conversion rate for a games publisher that's in a pretty developed nation sees like a studio that is somewhere where the conversion rate is really advantageous, that's also fairly common. That's not something that we look at too much when we're looking at projects, but like I've absolutely talked to other publishers that, they prioritize, like, is there a new studio in somewhere that there's a really smart way that they can invest in a project and see bigger returns because the conversion like on their dollar is crazy good. And it's a bit of weird